Increase the contrast a bit. Oh, there we go. Put the bump over here. Whoops, I'm on the wrong surface.
Might have to increase the light so it shows up on this projector.
Right, you don't like the black? Okay. It's looking pretty sick here. I mean, it's really looking like sick. And light. Actually, let's just increase the specularity a bit more. See, I told you I was looking like sick.
It's more like Mars.
Yeah, but it's wet.
Do you need to use any kind of Fresnel?
It helps. I didn't put it on there, I just did a quick thing, but yeah, let's go back to math, scalar, Fresnel. It's supposed to be water, so 1.35 is good enough. Specularity. Here we go.
So I have a question. You picked Fresnel. What's the difference between the Fresnel node and the incidence node?
The fall off. Pull up incidence. Keep grabbing the wrong one here. So incidence is actually outputting a value that directly relates to the angle of the polygons. So like, you know, if they're pointing straight at you, they're 1. If they're pointing 90 degrees away, it's 0. So it's like 45 degrees would be 0.5. What the Fresnel is doing is basing it on incident or refraction index. And it's basically what happens with glass. If you have, like, you know, air is basically 0, or sorry, 1. And water is like 1.33. Diamonds something like 1.5. So it's doing more of a mathematical thing, trying to figure out, you know, at what angle will light reflect off it instead of going into it. It just gives you a more natural thing. It's like usually around 1.3 to 1.5 are the really good values. It's like 1.5 will make that even more reflective. And you notice it starts getting brighter in here. Once you get like, you know, 2 or higher, it actually starts getting brighter in the center, then dips down, then brightens back up. And around 10, it's actually brighter on all the surfaces facing you and gets darker towards the edge. So it starts doing weird things. But it just gives you that nicer reflection. Go back to the ball here. Put that on the specularity. It pushed all the reflections right around to the edge. But pull up the incidence angle. Invert. Oh yeah, got to do that. It's not quite as nice. It comes out, you know, too much towards the front, and then it really drops off fast. The other node I use a lot is the invert node, which will take any grayscale and flip it around. So that's the 90-degree one is what it showed you when I had the invert done here. But this is taking the full 180 degrees, so I'm actually only using half that gradient, and I'm flipping that. Because with 180 degrees, polygons that are 90 degrees away from me are only, you know, 0.5% is what the output is. the polygons facing away from you are getting 0. So it's doing like the full, from behind all the way around to 1. Where 90 is actually the more useful one, where it's showing you, 0 degrees here, or sorry, 0% to 1%. But the 180 actually, doesn't let it drop down to 0 at the edge, so it looks a little bit better. But you have to use an invert node, because if you try to do it in here, well, you're going to get the 0 to 0.5 at the edge. So yeah, there's the main differences. That one's a little more accurate. Any other questions?
Yeah, where's the dung beetle?
He's off here. It's over here. Yeah, thing to remember is anything in the material nodes that says specularity, it's actually calculating reflections for everything.
How much subsurface scaring did you put on this mud?
Not a whole lot.
What's the depth?
And this was 1 millimeter. Let's try 5 millimeters. See if it's actually calculating it right. Yeah, it's looking right. Let's turn the light around now. That's a 1 meter sphere, so let's give it a half. Okay, let's try 1.
The reason I'm curious is because I showed earlier today how to create a mud effect, but I didn't show anyone how to surface it.
Yeah, well, Sigma's probably overkill for it, because you're not going to see through mud a whole lot. Let's drop that samples down. So did a bunch of tests with this thing really well on a teapot, which looked pretty cool. Oh, translucency, let's try bumping that up. 75. No, 75. What is going on? I hit the number lock key. There you go.
So there's a bump drop off. Is that always from the center?
Oh, bump drop off is something I asked for. You ever work with like a very organic model, and all along the terminator, the polygons would actually show up as either black triangles or lit? What that does at that terminator, the bumps don't calculate shadows from the polygons next to them unless they're out beyond a certain distance. Oh, sorry, no, that's the other one. Bump drop off actually drops the bumps once they get away from the light. Sorry. So like on the dark side, you're not going to see them unless the light's hitting them on the other side. That also runs into that same problem, though. It was actually two things, like displacements and bumps on like a really organic shape like an asteroid. That's where we kept running into it. So they came up with two ways of doing it. One was, because it wouldn't happen if you didn't have bumps. So if you, lowered the bumps near the terminator, it's gone. So that's what the bump drop off fixes. There's another setting in render globals. Is trying to remember where they stuck it.
Oh, you're talking about ray precision?
No, that was another thing that they added. I forget where they stuck it now.
What does it do?
It was a similar thing, but it's a shadow offset.
Would it be in the global lights panel?
Actually, it might be in the objects panel. Shadow offset, right there. That'll stop shadows from being calculated within that range.
Oh,
So-
the terminator?
No, of the object or geometry. So if I go to the checker ground, you see that shadow there. If I increase the shadow offset, probably doesn't do it there, but it should do it here. But anything smaller than that won't be visible there. No, it's still there. Stop. Let's try one. Okay, let's try two. Okay, I think it's only for the object itself, for self-shadowing.
So you have to turn that on for the other object? Or wait, it's not self-shadowing, so it doesn't count? Because the current object is
Hold on,
small.
here. I want to try it on the actual checkerboard ground. Try two. Just notice I have my ball selected yet. Yeah, there it goes. There's no shadow there now
Also, how come the wireframe started showing up?
because I had the ball selected. So I've got OpenGL wireframe turned on here,
Oh, I see.
so I can turn that off.
What does that mean, shadow offset? I mean,
Oh, the surface won't pick up any shadows from geometry closer than that distance.
And it's not showing up in BPR, so I should probably report that.
Yeah, I had a feeling it wouldn't show up there. There's a similar thing with volumetrics. It's clip distance. There, now you can see shadow cuts off right there. And again, that's just to stop polygons from self-shadowing themselves near a terminator. Doesn't always happen, but I have seen it on balls and asteroids and anything that's really organically shaped. But it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you can load the object in a Z and it works fine.
I saw it on the Starship Enterprise once.
Yeah. Yeah, it works in concave surfaces a lot too. I've seen people complaining about that when they're doing a sync and they're getting these weird little polygon shapes all over the place.
I think it was the Enterprise A saucer.
Yeah. Oh. Any other questions?
Any other secrets of LightWave you could tell us?
Don't use dynamics. Yeah, somebody on Facebook compared them to a poop smear on a monitor.
Yeah, I know that guy. He's a real jerk.
I hate to run into him in a dark alley.
Or a lit one. Or a lit one.
Any other questions?
What's your favorite camera settings?
My favorite camera settings. So if you have it, fisheye camera. If you don't have it, you should probably get it because it's pretty cool. So I use this little fisheye camera. This is not what it renders. So I'll actually just leave it at that 90 degrees. But for anti-aliasing, 3. Reconstruction filter, that's up to personal preference. Classic and box are actually the same thing. I don't know why they still have both in there.
I think box tamps down bright pixels, I think.
It's been pixel identical every test I've done.
Okay.
Gaussian does a slight blurring on the render. Mitchell does a slight sharpening. Lanxos does a lot of sharpening. And these little soft and sharp filters are basically that, it softens it or sharpens it. So you can guess that, Lanxos soft is probably going to look disgusting because it's going to, do a super edge enhancement and then blur it. So yeah, it does look gross. Way I use them, Classic and Box are, just standard. It's just an even weighting for all the samples in every pixel. So stick with those. You're not really going to go wrong. Gaussian, because it does a little bit of a blurring by weighting samples with pixels outside.